All this talk about hyperspace and other dimensions and eternity, what we're really talking about here is the cultural and personal enterprise of leaving the body behind.
Terence, you started talking about abductions and children, and you never really got back to that.
Let me do that. Well, it's simply that we share this planet with some other kind of entity, and culture is a way of sealing us off from this fact, which children are not fully acculturated. Children are barbarians of some sort. And then as they become acculturated, their invisible companions fade away and they become as dreary as the rest of us. The abduction phenomenon, I think, is simply an inability to tell the difference between dream and memory. Dream is the fascinating dimension, and I don't demean these experiences by associating them with dream. I think that probably when we fully understand DMT, we will realize that every night in deep sleep, most people go to the meltdown place and actually experience a DMT trip. But the essence of the core of the DMT trip is you cannot remember it. A really good DMT trip has a part always in the center where you do not lose consciousness. You are conscious while it's happening, but you can never, ever talk about that part of the trip. Because within 20 seconds of its ceasing to be the present, it's gone. It lays down no memory trace. And that's the moment where you really find out what's going on. They show you, you get the hyper-Masonic initiation of the local Galactarian lodge at that point. But then you come out of it and you have no trace of it. You have the sense of having been in the presence of the pleroma, but what that means, you haven't the faintest notion. Well, my approach to that is sort of Jungian, and I've talked to a lot of people who've done DMT and tried to build up a composite image of what is happening. And a great deal, it has a lot to do with what you bring to it, your past education and experience, obviously, and it has a great deal to do with just your descriptive powers and your ability to stay calm. I mean, some people just go nuts and yell for it to end and carry on. From talking to a lot of people, the archetype that rules DMT, I would say, is the archetype of the circus. And think for a moment. The circus is about a focus on a well-lit central area filled with chaotic activity. First of all, the clowns. And the clowns are the self-transforming machine elves. They arrive in their tiny car and 15 of them get out and they have big noses and rubber shoes and they dance around. Clowns. But in the DMT thing, there is a weird and very strong erotic component. And I believe from my own work on myself that I became aware of Eros. I wouldn't say had my first erection, but maybe the first one I was ever conscious of or something like that, in the presence of a lady acrobat at a circus wearing a tiny spangled costume and hanging by her teeth way up and I got it. Death and Eros and this incredible dynamic. So you have the clowns, the death and Eros thing at the circus, and then you have this kinky undercurrent, which is the sideshows. The rat-faced boy and the thing in the bottle and the two-headed lady and all that. It just off the main ring, folks, the hoochie-coochie dancers and all that. And then, when you think about the concept of the circus generally, you realize it's a perfect metaphor for DMT, because I grew up in a small town in Colorado where every 1st of July, the carnival would come to town. And we were told we couldn't stay out after 9:30 at night playing when the carnival was in town, because these carny people, they were just a different stripe, you know. Some of them probably drank heavy. They were of racially questionable origins and so forth. And they brought immense excitement to this little town, unpacked their wonders, built their Ferris wheels and rides, bilked all the rubes of their cash, and packed it all up and went away. And of course, every kid worth his salt wants to run off with the circus. And, you know, Ray Bradbury in his book, The Circus of Dr. Lao, used these motifs. Fellini in his films, over and over again, the circus is a motif for the unconscious. So over time, and I've had people say, you know, very interesting things. I saw a woman do a subthreshold trip on DMT, and unprompted, and never having heard this rap, when she came down, she said, it was the saddest carnival I've ever been to. She said all the rides were closed and there were just those little square ice cream papers blowing in the wind and getting caught up, and I was the only person there. Well, that's about as down a DMT trip as you can have, and basically as you do more of it, you just dial it up until, you know, it becomes Barnum and Bailey, Ringling Brothers, and then it goes on to become the Star Wars bar, and then it goes on to become something from which English cannot even begin to wrap itself around. But I think that's the archetype. Yeah.
What do you consider the importance of venue or place when you're ingesting psychedelics? Do you pick up the energy that has been left in that place? Is that an important component?
I think the main thing is to be in a situation where you're not interrupted and where you are confident. I do not take psychedelics outside very much, because I've noticed that the synchronicity thing is uncontrollable. I mean, if you want to have adventures, you know, take 200 micrograms of LSD and step out into, say, the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And it's just terrifying. So, and I learned that lesson very early. So I unplug the phone, bolt the doors, tell everybody I've left town, and then do it.